I want to take a minute to talk about Dumbledore. I woke up this morning to the news of Michael Gambon's death at the age of 82, after just last night seeing Deathly Hallows Part 2 on the big screen with Maggie. Alamo Drafthouse was doing a big screening of all the movies 1 week at a time, and that finally wrapped up after 2 months of us revisiting this franchise. That all wrapped up last night. And my first thought when I saw this news this morning was about that King's Cross sequence, that visit from Dumbledore from the afterlife, and he talking about where you go after you die, and he just says, on. And that scene always felt transcendent to me, and mythical, impossible, comforting, difficult. It's a wonderful counterpoint to the scene where Harry gets to finally talk to his dead parents, and Sirius and Lupin, and all of these other parental figures throughout his life. But seeing Dumbledore in that King's Cross scene, it's different with the parents because we've never really seen them talk, so we have nothing to compare them to. But the way Dumbledore behaves and holds himself in that King's Cross scene is such a departure from how we've gotten to know him in the couple movies preceding that. Seeing the way that he shuffles along through that powerfully lit King's Cross sequence, seeing his kindness, it stands in such contrast to the harsh revelations we've gotten about Dumbledore in that movie, learning about his family history and the Elder Wand and his sister and all of this background stuff that makes him seem much more devious and dark and complicated than we'd ever thought of him before. Seeing the way he shuffles along in his little slippers, how polite and kind he is to Harry in this sequence, it really struck me last night. It so powerfully illustrates the duality of the character. Because at the very same time, he is the wise, good-humored grandfather figure. And he's this new, secretive, raising Harry like a pig for slaughter schemer. And in that moment at King's Cross, that was maybe the first time that Michael Gambon reminded me of Richard Harris. It felt like a gesture at that other duality at the center of this character, being the recasting after Chamber of Secrets. And that evocation, that one moment, only deepens the character for me. It expands Michael Gambon's performance to include and reflect on and almost meditate on what Richard Harris did with the role. It felt like a clarification as much as it is a callback. Him sort of winking at the camera saying, hey, yeah, I could have done an imitation of this guy's performance the whole time, and I'm pretty good at it, but I didn't. Because it's not just an imitation. It's not that at all. I don't mean to demean that scene in any way, but it felt like a layered reminder. Like Michael Gambon saying, this Dumbledore that you got to know and fall in love with in sort of an uncomplicated way in the first two movies, he's still here. And he was here the whole time. Now, Maggie and I, on the podcast on previous episodes, we've talked before about the change that I believe, at least for me, definitely takes place in how I experience an artist's work after they die. Whether it's a rewatch or a reread, especially for long-running dramas, just because you have so many dozens of hours of investment in these characters and their lives, I feel a sadness. When I'm rewatching it after one of the actors has died, I feel a sadness. Their performances feel more potent and rich for me. I don't know why. There's a sense of finality and completeness. It's a very strange sensation. And it makes me feel very wistful and almost protective over that performance, especially if it's something I've loved for years that I'm revisiting later on. But similarly, we've discussed another change that takes place within a work of art that you're experiencing after the character dies. Not the actor, but just the character. And because the question that popped into my head after I saw this news and kind of stewed on it for a few minutes this morning is, would seeing Deathly Hallows Part 2 tonight, would that King's Cross sequence at the end of the movie feel any different tonight than it did last night when he was still alive? Even though the character was already dead for years. And I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question, and now I never will be able to, but I don't think it would feel different. I want to I want to explore that a little deeper and talk just for a minute about Michael Gambon as Dumbledore and sort of what he did with the role. It was strange when he came on the scene in Prisoner of Azkaban. I think we all took a minute to adjust. And of course, his performance almost became a meme. If you look at the aggressive way that he talks to Harry in Goblet of Fire after his name comes out of the goblet, he's very rough with Harry. And I remember at the time, and even now, a lot of people sort of dismiss this performance based on that scene alone, or reduce it to that one scene. But over these last 2 months, as Maggie and I have revisited these movies, watching them week to week, watching these characters age and all of the horrible stuff they go through, these stories get dark really quick. I mean, it starts in that idyllic beauty of the first movie. I mean, maybe simplicity is what I mean more than beauty, because you have Harry being rescued from this horrible domestic life and thrust into this endless, wondrous, magical world. But even in that first movie, things get pretty rough towards the end, and if I'm just taking like a quick survey of the next couple movies, Chamber of Secrets is basically a series of school shootings and an exploration of the culture of fear and paranoia that follows those. Prisoner of Azkaban is all about stalking and murders and deaths and these soul-sucking depression murder monsters that are flying around the castle we used to love. Goblet of Fire is about war criminals and torture and this mini Hunger Games that all these children are thrown into. We see an on-screen death of a student at the end, the resurrection of the magical fascist and his death cult, amputations, family killings, terrorism at the World Cup, and it only escalates from there. Those are just 3 examples. But I noticed watching especially the trio, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, watching them grow up through these events, you realize how young these characters are dealing with all these things, how quickly we go from cute little Harry in the window on Christmas morning to Umbridge forcing him to torture himself and turning our beloved Hogwarts into a police state like 4 years later. So hey, if you go back to that Goblet of Fire scene with Dumbledore, maybe a little aggression is justified, especially from the guy who's supposed to be running the school that is the home to so much of this chaos. And Michael Gambon gives us a Dumbledore for these rougher, tougher times. He's still gentle. There are moments of him being caring and heartbroken and protective and compassionate, but it's not at all a simple performance. He adds the edge to that character that develops throughout the series. He gives this role such depth. And it's that complication that we needed. I think it's that second guess and people almost grating against the character, resenting him, or maybe in aggregate, it's the audience struggling with the character more than they did during those first 2 movies. I think that complication, that struggle, is necessary for us to buy into the endgame contradictions within Dumbledore's character that the whole series really relies on. You have to buy that grandfather character and that pig for slaughter liar, and that those can exist within the same person. You have to have an actor portray both of those characters in fairly limited screen time. Yeah, today, I mean, it's tough. I get really bummed when actors die. I mean, we now have Robbie Coltrane as Hagrid. He died recently. We, of course, have Alan Rickman as Snape. He's gone. And this one just hit me sideways. Michael Gambon's Dumbledore. He really gave us something that I don't think was appreciated at the time. I had the luck of following this franchise as it really unfolded. It tracked pretty perfectly with my adolescence. It was an unbelievable time to grow up in pop culture. This was a magical tidal wave that I don't think past or future generations will ever really understand. My generation really hit things nicely in that respect. But Michael Gambon's performance is something I'm really getting more and more out of as I get older, as I revisit these movies again and again. He gave us a fascinating, desperate, hopeful, flawed, aspirational, and tragic Dumbledore. I think it's just what the character needed. I can't imagine anything else happening now. I need Richard Harris there for the first 2, and then I need Michael Gambon there for the others. The handoff feels so natural now. It feels so right, even though, of course, it's terrible that Richard Harris died before the franchise was done and that it had to be recast. It's such a dreadful circumstance for an actor to have to come into a role like that. But he made it his own and continued what was there. I really think it's a beautiful job in performance that I really have gotten a lot out of. So I just wanted to take a moment to talk about that today and remember this fantastic performance. Of course, he had a great and varied career beyond that, but growing up when I did, Harry Potter was it. I can't help but think of that shot of seeing Dumbledore in the portrait in his office. He's joined those ranks now. I wonder if in the future, when I rewatch these movies, if it will feel more like, if his performance will feel more like Richard Harris's now. I'm wondering how that change is going to feel and going to impact us. It's strange. It's strange when actors, pass on and join this sort of pantheon. It happened with Hagrid, it happened with Snape, and now it's happened with both Dumbledores. Richard Harris and Michael Gambon, I think they're on this sort of even footing. I see them in separate but adjoining portraits in my mind. So let me know what you thought of Richard Harris's performance, of Michael Gambon's performance, of the duality of this character, both on and off screen. I just wanted to get some thoughts down. This is a good way of processing this sort of stuff for me. And thank you for listening as ever. Just a wonderful performance that I think I've enjoyed struggling with. And maybe that's the greatest compliment to these sort of difficult, human, nuanced performances. Yeah, all right, that's it. We'll have a new normal episode in a few days, but I just wanted to get this one on the books. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.